Welcome to the Pintastic Podcast, a podcast about growing profitability the right way with sustainable systems so you can be found first without tantrums over tech and trading sleep for success. Prepare yourself for mind-blowing discussions and actionable tips focused on Pinterest strategies, funnel marketing, and everything in between with your host, Laura Rike. So let's make Pinterest profitable for you.
Hey, fantastic friends. I need you to lean in close for this one. Because if you've been wondering how Pinterest is going to fit into your marketing plan, or maybe you've been thinking that it's just for recipes or it's just for wedding planning, and I don't know how to monetize it. I don't know how to bring in leads if I'm just leading to a podcast. Then I'm going to flip everything on its head and teach you exactly what needs to be done. In today's episode, it's going to be part strategy, part spotlight. I am sitting down with someone who knows about how to talk about marketing, media, and money in a way that makes you want to grab a notebook and take all the notes. She's a speaker, a marketing strategist, a podcast host, and just genuinely an awesome sauce entrepreneur. So welcome, Patty.
Thank you so much, Laura. Such an exciting time right now, and I'm really excited to be here.
I am super excited to go over this with you as well. So I know our listeners out there who have podcasts, you've been focused on monetizing and growing your listener base. You don't want to dance on TikTok or spin your wheels on Instagram. So I want you to listen in close because Pinterest is one of the wildly underused platform for podcasters, and it can really honestly change your growth strategy. We talked about this before we even started the podcast. It's a search platform. So it's a gold mine for being able to sustain long-term listener growth with your podcast. And I want to talk about all the things. Like Patty and I were talking about keywords and monetizing. So let's hop into the why first. Why Pinterest still works for podcasters. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about, Patty, is you had mentioned with your podcast, you want to grow the listener base, you have lead magnets, you want to learn how to monetize on Pinterest better. So let's kind of shift the focus with your podcast episodes. Do you have specific ways that you are setting up success for capturing leads and capturing monetization or sales from those individual episodes right now?
Yes, my podcast is tied as far as like cross promoting with my magazine. So my podcast is Marketing, Media, Money, and so is my magazine. My magazine, we have 250,000 subscribers. So I'm really wanting to use Pinterest as a way to capture a lot of the people that we have for the magazine for the podcast as well. And I think that is really key because it is a search engine, right? And so I think that that is really important. And I thought it was funny you said it in the beginning, but I used to think that Pinterest was like Facebook for weekends. That's what it was for me. It was like Facebook for weekends. And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, I am purchasing things from things that I'm seeing, and I'm spending my money on Pinterest when I see things. So why would my clients not be doing that as well, right?
100%. Yep. Totally. And so here's the cool nature of it, right? Your podcast, doing a quick little dive on it, is in multiple different places. And when we're looking at it, we're actually seeing that you have it on YouTube and you have it on different platforms that in the notes, you're already offering different ways to become a lead or purchase from you. So that is one of the easiest ways to be able to utilize this on Pinterest for that. So let's go into the key features about keeping it searchable and things like that. So when we're talking about Pinterest and podcast episodes, this here is your Pinterest account. One of the things that we want to focus on is not necessarily the podcast as a whole only. We want to also think about the individual topics that you talk about. So if we were to take just this topic, let's go back to your podcast here. There was one right here at the top, financial money mindset, right? And how to fix and leverage the psychology of money. We want to send traffic to this. Now, we have a couple different links. You don't have to blog your podcasts because you do. That is an additional link that you can send traffic to. You can also send traffic direct to the YouTube account, and you can send traffic direct to where they can find your podcast, whether it is on Apple, whether it is on Spotify, things like that. I don't think it will let me see it on there, but you can also find it here. So this would be another individual link. If I captured, let's see.
If you look at my main page, you'll see all of the links.
There you go. Yes. And this individual link as well. And so the notes are already in here, right? One of the things I would challenge you is in these show notes, also make sure that you are putting links like you do in YouTube. So have the links to your lead magnets that are hyper relevant, have the links to purchase from you, stuff like that. Also in your blog posts. So I love how this is in here. Take the quiz, get your free copy. One of the things that I've noticed that helps with podcasters capturing leads is if you set it up in the blog post, if you are blogging, to have the form directly embedded in that blog post with the podcast. So I do my podcast. It's a video podcast and an audio. It is on Spotify, so I embed it into that. But what I'm talking about is here. So now they can sign up direct in here with their name and email without ever leaving this podcast. So they could be listening at the same time that they're reading the show notes or understanding what we're talking about. And I've had people that will sign up for this at the same time that they're listening to the podcast. So that would be something that I would highly suggest, because when we get into it, I want you to be able to create at the beginning 2 to 3 pin images for this one podcast. And we'll talk about the different types of pins that you can create, but you want to mix formats on that. So this one could talk about financial mindset, right? And you can find the keywords throughout the actual transcript. I think it would be really cool. Do you use ChatGPT?
I'm actually an AI expert, so I use all of them. But I use Cast Magic, and it gives me all of the keywords and stuff. So
All of the keywords from the podcast?
absolutely.
Amazing. So one of the things that I would then suggest is going to trends.pinterest.com with those keywords, or you can go to ChatGPT and type in what keywords are trending on Pinterest from this list of keywords. And that's going to help you kind of figure out what to focus on. And so if I start typing in, bear with me, financial mindset, we're just going to copy it and paste it in here. And we're going to see what starts to show up, right? And so it might not be financial mindset that you focus on. Maybe it's financial freedom or growth mindset or financial life hacks. We want to see what's going to be working for us right now. This is going to start trending at the beginning of the year naturally, right? As everybody is focusing on their finances and things like that. But it also has a peak in July. So if you start creating pins now using financial life hacks as the keyword and lead back to the financial mindset podcast episode, it does start trending and having a peak in July, you will be ahead of the game. I actually teach people that you should be at a bare minimum 45 days out ahead of time. On Pinterest, for my clients, when we do organic management, we are anywhere from 4 to 6 months out, so that we can hit on this trend or this peak in what's happening. So this right now, while we're talking about this keyword, would be a good time for you to share that podcast on the platform with the keyword financial life hacks. You can also compare it to other keywords. And so you can see that financial freedom actually does a lot better in January than financial life hacks. What's cool though is they'll actually give you related trends down here as well. So money management advice, financial tips, literacy, budgeting money, all of these you can use. Yeah, we're talking about mindset, but we're also talking about the finances with it. So if you're looking at different things like how your mindset drives it, we could talk about money, mental health, net worth, shift from scarcity to abundance, which is growth mindset, right? And so that's also a keyword that we looked up here. When I was doing this, we had growth mindset. And so growth mindset, I'm going to take off financial freedom because that's an outlier in January. But growth mindset actually has a peak. And in August, it peaks higher than financial life hacks. So if we're creating 2 to 3 pins, each pin can focus on a different keyword and be scheduled at a different time to all of the links relevant to this podcast.
That would really work a lot. Although those numbers are in 2024, can't really tell you what it's going to do in 2025, but you're forecasting, and I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, so the way that trends work is they actually predict how the trends are going to be based on the previous data that they've had of what's actually worked. And so they are now starting to forecast into the future. However, this data is how they predict the trends. And every time they put out their Pinterest predicts, they predict 10 different trends as like their major trends. They've been 8 or 9 out of 10 correct every single year, because this is actually based on years worth of previous data of when it was trending. So you can almost guarantee that it's going to trend around the same time. So it's super helpful to be able to look at that. And then you can start to go in here and look at what are the types of designs and questions and headlines people are using. You want to make sure that you keep them hyper relevant to what you're talking about. So even for when we do key takeaways, almost everybody in podcasting does key takeaways. These could be right here, 6 different titles that you use for 6 different pins that lead to this same podcast episode, because this is what you're talking about throughout it. So you could do a pin with a title about your mindset drives your money, and then maybe have the keyword in there about self-worth or financial success, financial life hacks, right? And so you could say for the title, financial life hacks, your mindset drives your money. There's one pin. Now you're hitting on the keyword trend. You're hitting on the topic that you're actually talking about in this episode, and you're leaving yourself open to be able to create multiple batched pins with different titles and different keywords. So it's not just one podcast, done, move on, one pin, done, move on. You can repurpose it. And I don't want to get too into the weeds about scheduling because it's kind of hard without the visual of actually scheduling them for you. But let's say you had 6 of them here. Let's say we're going to do 3 of them for this podcast. Now, if we do one title with one keyword, right? So that's 3 keywords that we're targeting, 3 pin designs. So we have 3 going, but you also have your blog, YouTube, and the podcast directly. So now you just created 9 ways to share this one topic.
That sounds fabulous.
How cool is that?
Right?
Does it make sense when trying to find the keywords for it? Because I know we're not talking specifically in those titles about financial mindset, but the keywords that people are searching can be found in trends or on the searches of Pinterest. So does that kind of help bridge that gap about making sure that even though we say the phrase financial mindset, we're still talking to what people are actually searching?
No, of course. It's sort of like what people put in Google when they're searched to their voice activated devices is not exactly the same thing either. So you have to speak in the language for the platform that you're on.
I absolutely love the way that you put that. That was so good. Okay, so let's talk about what to actually pin, right? There are 3 static pins that absolutely every podcaster should be creating. And do you want to take a guess as to what they are?
The ones that all podcasters that are static should be.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I would absolutely say that they want to pin their podcast in general, like their title, their name of what their podcast is, for sure. I think drop value nuggets so they can drive people. And I would say you also want to make sure that whatever is your call to action.
Okay, great. So every pin should have a call to action. I love that. It should be on every single one. 100%. We want to create episode teaser pins, is what I call them, right? So the headlines that make them curious, like 5 tips that landed me in a better financial headspace, like whatever it is, right? You want to be able to pull those out. Again, that's going to be really easy when you have your own takeaways that you're doing on your podcast. Another thing that you can do is quote graphics. So you can pull a juicy quote from your guest, yourself, something that's super like standout powerful, that makes them kind of go, ooh, what the heck was that about? Where did that come from? And then they would click through. You can also do educational or listicle type idea pins. So those lists of takeaways, you could put them in a list pin.
And actually, one of the things that I think is really interesting here that I want to ask you as a Pinterest expert is one of the things that I've noticed is when people talk about their podcast, right? They talk about these are the key takeaways. So say they were going to say, these are 3 top ways to get people to listen to your podcast more. And then they tell you what they are. And I don't like to do that because then why do they want to listen to my podcast, right? I just told them the answers. I like to, to actually do teasers and tell them that we're going to tell you what the top 3 things are. But I've noticed that a lot of podcasters actually share the actual tip or what the thing is. And I notice a lot of times when I go look at those in podcasts, I don't even listen to the podcast. You just gave me all the information. So I don't actually need to listen to it. But again, I think it all depends upon why are you doing it. Not everybody may be doing it for that reason, right? So there's a lot of different reasons, but I like the little mic drop moments. I like the little value nuggets and the things that make me go, oh, wait a second. That was really good. I want more, right?
Yeah, 100%. So when it comes to Pinterest, it's very similar, right? So it's going to be dependent on your goal. If you're looking for visibility and brand awareness, then you might not mind giving out those teasers. There's another angle to it too, though, where like if you think about food bloggers, sometimes they put the whole recipe on the pin. Sometimes in past analytics deep dives with some of my clients that are food bloggers, those actually are the best pins that perform. Even though everything's right there on them, they don't see the process images, they don't see the quick tips or those juicy nuggets behind the explanation or that quick sentence. So I think it really depends on testing and just making sure what your audience is going to resonate with. I do believe that there are certain instances where it is important to make sure that we're not giving away everything on the pin. So you can definitely do an A/B test. If you do that, make sure you only change one thing. So have the same image, the same headline, and then maybe have one have the key takeaways and one not have the key takeaways. Pin them to the same board, same time of day, same link, and then see within 30 days kind of what those results are. That's going to be really your biggest test for that. For me, I don't mind when I'm doing different types of pins to give those kind of key nuggets. I do it in a little bit different way though, so I don't list them all out. I will give away like a key topic, right? So if we're going back to yours, your mindset drives your money. I would have a sub line underneath that that says your beliefs about self-worth, success, and abundance are going to be your financial reality. And then underneath that, for the call to action, I might say, but I bet you didn't know X. Or number 2 in this process is really where it starts to stick. Or things like that, where you do kind of get that creative spin on it. If you're giving that key takeaway away, you're still kind of using that teaser, that nugget at the same time. And then the implementation side, everybody that is out there that's listening to podcasts or reading or things like that, they're doing it because they enjoy it, regardless if they're learning, if they're connecting with someone, whatever. But they really need to also be told, like, how am I implementing? How am I moving through this? Like, it's great to learn and download a ton of stuff, but if you're not actually putting it into practice, regardless of what it is that you're learning, it's just learning, right? And so that would be another thing, is like, learn how to blank for your call to action. You give away all those key takeaways or key nuggets and then tell them this is how you implement. So those are really the 3 types of like static pins that I would. A bonus type that I would love to also suggest is doing those video clips. So video
Lots of video clips, probably 20 to 25 every single episode. Stories. We do little clips that are less than 30 seconds, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. I also have software that, does that and stuff though. So I don't record anything that I don't repurpose at least 20 other ways.
Amazing. So let's talk about when we clip the video clip and you have it, best practices for Pinterest. So on Pinterest, we want to make sure that we have that juicy nugget, as you say it, in the first 5 to 10 seconds. That's really when they're going to start to understand it. The Pinterest platform does best with video around 15 to 45 seconds. That's kind of the window. You can upload 60 seconds or less, but we've seen best performance with things that are under that 45-second mark. The other thing to note is when you upload a pin. So I will go into here. We're going to just share this for a quick second. Maybe. There we go. So when you're in Pinterest, if you go up here and you're going to say, I want to create a pin, and you're going to upload a video, the thing that you want to focus on, and I'm just going to grab any one of these. These are client videos, but that's fine. Down here, it will give you, I'm going to move us to the side. It will give you this option to cover over what video cover you want. Now, you can see the words that show up on this video. We want to make sure that when we are choosing this cover down here, it has keywords that are hyper relevant to what we want to be found for, or we want to click right here and upload a static image. So that way, then we would have different ways. And I don't know if I have any static images like readily available, but let's just say that this is a static image for them, right? We'll go here. So that's cool beans. Can't do it right now. It's not going to let me because I have a different size video than I do that. But you can upload the image right here and make sure that it is specific to what you want on the video as that cover image. You can also hover over and choose what you want to show up for that cover page. If you don't choose this, what's going to happen is it's going to be a blank gray screen when they are on your profile. So they're going to see, instead of all these wonderful pins, they're not going to show anything. It's just going to be grayed out. And so the algorithm won't be able to read what is on your pin for that video, and then it's not going to be prioritized in terms of search at that time. So it's really important that either when repurposing, you put that video into Canva and have a image created on the forefront of that video, or you have a screen grab when you upload the video to Pinterest to have the text you want to be searched for, or you upload the same size image as the video to be your cover image. That's really going to be the outlier in terms of making sure that it can still be searched like a static pin. Okay, so I think the other thing to note about video pins is put your primary focus into static pins first and use video pins as visibility. So on the Pinterest platform, podcasters see it really easy to take their videos and cut them up and use them as teasers and promotions and things like that, like on Reels and other places. And that's amazing. But on Pinterest, they have been taught that you click the pin, pull it closer and click it again, and it goes to where they want. With videos, that process is not the same. So it does a really good job of bringing in visibility and awareness. And you can get traffic from it, but the traffic generally comes from your static pins is the bulk of it. So figure out that mix in your strategy of how many times am I going to pin a video per week, per month, and then how many times am I going to pin per day with static images, because the two of them together can really then bring that traffic and awareness to those specific goals that you have of listeners and listener growth.
That makes a lot of sense. So, and I bet you it's something that people probably don't realize. So I think everybody thinks that, doing video is always so much better and you should always do video. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that static images still works, right? You just got to be on the right platform.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. What other questions can I help answer or address when it comes to using the platform as kind of your hidden gem?
I think the biggest question I have is about my magazine.
Okay.
So in my magazine, like I said, we have 250,000 subscribers. And when we have a current issue, like the new issue comes out, there's a link, and the link is an opt-in link because we want people to subscribe. So what I find annoying on Pinterest, and I want you to give me a better way, is that then when the new issue comes out, I have to go back to all the pins that have the old issue and actually change the link because it'll always go to the current one. And I'm like, I feel like there has to be a way
100%.
because there isn't an individual link for every issue.
Mm-hmm.
That is an opt-in.
Yeah.
That they can get directly without opting in, but I want them to opt into for my email list, right?
Yeah. So you're using lead pages, if I'm right? Yep. Perfect. And so every time you do a new drop of the magazine, what you're saying is you have a new landing page for that issue.
Well, we have the same landing page. Where the same landing page, you just go to that same landing page. Like that's the issue we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
But see where it says Patty Farmer, lead pages, whatever. But really the opt-in is m3digitalmag.com. So if people go to m3digitalmag.com, they will always get the current one, and that's where they will opt in. And so what happens is, they don't have to go to Patty Farmer. They just go to, M3 Digital Mag. And so we will always go to the current one.
Okay.
And so I think that has been really important. But then as soon as we do that, it'll always go to the current one. It'll always go to the current one. So when you're thinking back to my past ones and then change out the M3 Digital Mag one to the lead page one, and then it'll go directly to the magazine that matches the image, right? However, they won't have to opt in. The only time they opt in is when they opt into the current one. And so I really didn't have to do that. And it is kind of annoying to have to go back and change all those images.
Yeah, so I don't suggest changing images. It's very time consuming.
Not change images, change the URL.
The links. Yeah. Yeah. So where is your website hosted?
At WordPress.
Besides lead pages. Okay. Do you have something like Pretty Links or something like that? Can you use like Rebrandly or Pretty Links or something like that so that you always are sharing? And then I'll expand on this in a second, but you're always sharing that link, and then you would only have to change the Pretty Links that you have in the back end of that so that it's always going to go to the correct one.
But then it wouldn't go to the landing page.
Yes, it can. So here's what I do. So say, for example, I have my cohort that I launch every quarter or a couple times a year. We'll just say it's not like on schedule for every quarter. That's my goal. But so that landing page will change based on the dates, based on what's happening. Like there will be different things going on, right? So what I do is I create 2 to 3 different pretty links that go to the static landing page. And so the one landing page that's always going to be there, which is what you said was the lead pages, right? So this one never changes, just the images change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So create links for this, and I create a few of them so that I can use them on Pinterest. And I'm going to give this caveat or disclaimer that I do not suggest using pretty links for everything on Pinterest because Pinterest is always a redirection site. They like the long links. However, if you're coming into something that is like this and it's changing and you don't want to have the links go to a dead page, using a pretty link or reblaringly or things like that are going to be better than hitting an old link or an old dead page or things like that. And so what I do is I will create a pretty link. It'll be laurarike.com cohort, laurarike.com jumpstart, laurarike.com results jumpstart, like whatever I want to name it. And you could do it similar where you're like magazine January, magazine February, magazine, like whatever you want to think of, right? That way you still have a multitude of links to share to Pinterest. But then when you go into the back end of Pretty Links, when that landing page changes, you can change the link in Pretty Links instead of all the pins.
So you're saying you would go into Pretty Link and change the link and it automatically would do it on Pinterest?
Yes, because when you're in Pretty Link, if I share laurarike.com/cohort on Pinterest, that will stay the same. But then what I change on the back end of Pretty Links is what cohort is leading to. So I can go in here and share my screen this way. And so if I go in and I look up, well, even like this, right? So my membership page goes to this page. And I want to change this page sometimes to an actual landing page, right? And not just like a checkout page. And so what I did is I put in here that same pretty link, but laurarike.com pin perfect, laurarike.com monthly templates. And so that way, no matter what I share on Pinterest, if I'm doing this, it's going to show the right page. Or if I'm doing, let's say, cohort, I have different links on the back end that will show that. So see how it says cohort coupon jumpstart. So if I click on this in the back end of Pretty Links, you can see this is the full long URL. That URL can change. I also do this when I do masterclasses, which is probably more closely aligned with your magazine. When I do a masterclass, the link changes once it's live versus replay. And I want to be able to give that replay out, but I can't do live and replay on a pin link because it's not timeline wise going to pick up that quick like social media, right? And so I have in here Pinterest marketing strategy live, organic training, live training. But when you go in to edit, this link is the same for all of those. It's just showing that it's a different masked link. So I can go into all of those and change this at any time. And any pin that I have shared with laurarike.com/masterclass or laurarike.com/ what did I say? Pinterest marketing training or any of those like organic training, all of those are still going to go to the link that I saved in there. And so I can change it in the back end here, but this will always stay the same. So that would be the way that I would say do it, because then you don't have to go in and edit pins. In my opinion, editing pins is a waste of your time.
For sure.
Especially if it's like, I tested this and it's not bringing in traffic, or now it's a wrong link or whatever. Like, don't worry about it. Pinterest is dynamic. Worry about going forward, what you can do. So I would use something like that and then just create a bunch of them. So that way you're not then hitting up against sharing the same URL too many times. If you have multiple different ones, like masterclass, organic, Pinterest training, then you can share them multiple times without being hit for the individual link.
No, that's good.
Yeah, I think that will help streamline that a little bit more for you to continue to get those leads.
That's great.
Awesome.
That is a lot easier to do it than have it change. And then people are like, wait a second, I wanted to read this article and now it's this issue of the magazine. And even though once it changes, I get a permanent link to each issue. But like I said, they're not. Now I have promoted them afterwards and said, here is that issue. And then I, have my call to action say, but if you want to get every issue of the magazine, then go here, right? Because once they subscribe to the magazine, they are going to get all the new issues every time the new issue comes out in their inbox, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You could also go the route of duplicating that landing page and saying missed an issue and have like a tile of previous images. It doesn't have to be all of them.
Well, you have that on the confirmation page. So whenever somebody opts in and they get the confirmation page, they do have all of the.
But what I'm suggesting is have it as a landing page, like missed an issue and want this previous one. Here's the form, fill it out, and we'll take you to this. You can go to that confirmation page, but then that way they're still opting in, even if they came to you and they're like, oh, I missed the January one. I need that again, or I didn't get it, or I didn't sign up. Instead of giving them the published issue, have a duplicate landing page that says, hey, have you missed a past issue? Sign up here and we'll send it to you.
Oh, that's good too. That'd be a lot of issues though, because I've done my magazine for 7 years.
Yeah, no, not all of the issues. I'm saying just as one form for any previous issues.
Oh, now there you go. It'll just cover the replays that are all on one.
Yes.
And they would just pick it. And because they see the picture on the image of which one it is, they would just pick that one. Now that is a great idea, Laura.
There you go. Because then you also have another landing page to promote, right?
That is really good.
Oh, awesome. Well, if you are listening and your podcast teaches, inspires, or shares expert strategies like the wonderful Patty here we have today, then Pinterest, we have hopefully showed you, is a no-brainer. Her audience we were talking about is already searching for those financial mindset tips, and I'm sure many, many other keywords. We only dived into one of her podcasts and also talked about the magazine. So she can now show up without having to post daily on social media, and her content will keep working in the background for her. So just think, how many episodes do you have sitting in your archive that are still helpful, still relevant, and still brilliant, but nobody's listening to them? Pinterest can change that for you. So if you want to grow your audience for your podcast without relying on the social media hamster wheel, just start. Just throw up a couple of pins. You don't need to be perfect on the platform. You don't need a blog to get started. You don't even need the fancy pin designs. You can just start, and then you will start to see the value of it, repurpose your content, and let Pinterest do the long game work for you. I will go ahead and make sure to link all of the amazingness that we covered with Patty here today and her show, Marketing, Media, and Money. So if you have any questions or want to connect with her, you will be able to find those in the show notes. So if you loved this episode, make sure that you're sharing it with a podcasting friend who needs a reminder that marketing can be simple, and Pinterest might just be the tool that they're overlooking. Thank you so much for letting me dive in to your business and podcast and magazine. It was so great to have you with me today.
Thank you so much, Laura. This was fabulous.
Thanks so much for listening to the Pintastic Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.